have a few comments on this bill that I know that has been long in coming, and it's late in the evening. Many of you members in this chamber, or for some of the members in this chamber, the murders of George Floyd, Philando Castile, and Jamar Clark were glimpses into the horrors of black people, of what black people witness within the criminal justice system. For black people, Mr. President, these stories and names add to a long list and history of violence at the hands of police officers. George Floyd was murdered 8 blocks from where I live, and it could have easily been me. That has been the reality for too many black people for too long, not just in Minnesota, but across the entire nation. Minnesotans all want to move through our communities without the fear in the lives or loved ones, but time and time again, we've witnessed the evidence of horrors committed against black people by the police in the cities, on the back roads, in the living rooms, and on neighborhood streets, in the dark of night and in the light of day. We DFLers fought for weeks for robust police accountability measures and transformative criminal justice on this bill, and we think that this bill falls short of that. Weeks ago, after Minnesotans saw George Floyd murdered at the hands of police officers, it sparked outrage that people channeled into action. They used their voices to demand fundamental and transformative change. Mr. President, this bill allows cities and counties to offer incentives to encourage police officers and residents for the communities they work in. Mr. President, we don't think that that goes far enough. It establishes a Police Excellence and Improving Community Relations Board under the Post Board, and though we know that that was tightly negotiated, we think that there could have been a better chance of adding members to be integrated. As Senator Limmer said, we thought that that would have been a better place. It does mandate mental illness training, and we're appreciative of that, so that officers are not put in a place, in a position to do things that they're not trained to do. We do appreciate the mandating of the autism training. Some of the other things, the duty to intercede and changes to the arbitration process. While the bill was a product of compromise and includes some priorities of the PLCI caucus, it lacks the teeth, members, and it lacks the strong, robust policies that build the much-needed trust between the black community and law enforcement. This bill lacks the critical language such as penalties for bad actors and protections against retaliation who report those bad actors, Mr. President. So while this bill sets the groundwork for what we all need to know is it sets the groundwork for the work that we know needs to continue after this. The conversation cannot and will not end there with the passage of this bill, because there's a lot of work that will be required to protect black bodies. We must continue to work towards a just and fair criminal justice system for all, with no exceptions. Every Minnesotans deserve to feel safe in their community across the state. We Senate DFLers will continue to advocate for legislation that accomplishes that. I do want to recognize my fellow PLCI caucus members that sometimes maybe members of this body don't know that they're here. Members like our chair, Senator Fung Her, Senator Patricia Torres Ray, Senator Melissa Franzen. But I also want to acknowledge, as you saw today, the thoroughness of my good friend and fellow Minneapolitan, Senator Carrie Disick, and the lead in Senator Limmer's committee, Senator Ron Latz. This bill would simply not exist or be possible if it wasn't for the leadership of those people. Meanwhile, there's an extreme lack of transparency in the Senate process. instead of having honest, open, and deliberate conversations with each other, regardless to districts or background or committee assignments. Senate Republicans wasted days talking about statutes and crime refusing to address or discuss or even acknowledge the underlying issue of structural racism that led to George Floyd's murder. Police accountability and reforms put forth by the People of Color and Indigenous Caucus didn't receive a single hearing in the Senate, not one single hearing. Instead, we got a closed-door deal in the middle of the night with no public input. And I listened, and I want to be clear, I listened to Senator Gazelka said that he gave Senator Champion a ring a couple times and just wanted to make sure he could loop him in. Well, that's not what we do here in the Senate. It's not our process. That doesn't invite people in. So though we're here, though we appreciate the work that the House has done and to work with the Senate, we still believe that with a better process there were critical provisions that could have been in. We do believe that we could have had a much better bill, a bill that would have been much more informed by the community that we all represent. We think that there is much work to be done on this issue. We think that it shouldn't have taken so long, shouldn't be 141 at the second special session to finally get here. We think that when we come back, and whoever is in control of this body, I would hope that they would take the time, they would emphasize, they would recognize, they wouldn't avoid the hard conversation that we need to have. And that not only goes for criminal justice and law enforcement, but that also goes for education, members, we talked about that today. That also goes for health care. That also goes for transportation. This body has not done its work. And here we are again. In the middle of July, I told one of my friends today, I think it was Senator Swedinsky, I've never been in session in July, not that I can remember, not this time. And here we are again, 145, in the cover of darkness, with the Senate minority not being informed, not being there every step of the way, having to hear it second and third hand. Maybe we get a little call from the leaders here. Maybe Senator Gazelka will find a little time in his day to pick up the phone and call one of our members to let us know what might happen. That's not the way we should do it. So I do want to respect the work that was done. I do want to be able to say that this is a first step, but it's that first small step. Mr. President, you know, it's those, sometimes we got those big steps. This is a little step. So I'm going to support it. I'm going to encourage my colleagues to do so, but we have a lot of work to be done if we're going to actually solve this issue, if we're actually going to deal with structural changes, if we're going to wake up, if we're going to get out of denial, if we're going to stop being last in every single indicator, every quality of life indicator for people of color, we're going to have to do much better. So, Mr. President, with that, I will ask members to vote for it reluctantly, but I would hope that we would do a much better job moving forward. I would hope that we would listen, and I would hope that we would not think that this is simply just for people of color. I would hope that we would think that this is helpful for all Minnesotans.